You wake up. You check your phone. You already feel behind. Before you have said a single word, before you have eaten, before you have even stood up from your bed, the world is already pulling you in 10 directions. Notifications, news, other people's problems, other people's opinions. And just like that, your morning is gone. Not stolen, given away. This is a graded lesson for English learners who want wisdom and clarity. And today the wisdom comes from a man who lived 2,000 years ago, who faced more chaos, more pressure, and more noise than most of us will ever know. And yet every single morning, he was in control. His name was Lucius Annaeus Seneca, and his morning routine was one of the most powerful systems ever written down. Here is what I want you to understand right now. The way you begin your day is not a small thing. It is not just about waking up early or drinking water or making your bed. It is about who you decide to be before the world tells you who it wants you to be. Your morning decides your life. Seneca knew this. He built his entire philosophy around the idea that time is the only thing we truly own. Not money, not status, not the opinions of others. Time. And the morning is where that time either gets claimed by you or taken from you. In this lesson, I'm going to give you 6 things Seneca did every morning. Not 6 vague ideas. 6 real specific actions that you can use starting tomorrow. Each one comes directly from his writings. Each one has a purpose. And each one, when practiced together, builds the kind of morning that changes how you think, how you feel, and how you move through your entire day. By the end of this video, you will have a complete system. A Stoic morning routine built for the modern world, tested by 2,000 years of human experience, and simple enough to begin tomorrow. But first, let me ask you something. What did you do this morning? Did you decide your day, or did your day decide you? Think about that. Because that question is exactly what Seneca asked himself every single morning before he wrote a single word, before he spoke to a single person, before he allowed the world inside. If you are serious about taking your mornings back, subscribe right now. There is more coming and you do not want to miss it. Now, let's begin. Who was Seneca, and why his morning still matters? Before we talk about the routine, you need to understand the man. Because Seneca was not a monk living in a quiet mountain. He was not a man who had the luxury of peace. He was one of the most powerful, most pressured, most dangerous people in the Roman Empire. And still, every morning, he was calm. Seneca was born around 4 BCE in what is now Spain. He moved to Rome as a young man and became one of the greatest writers, thinkers, and speakers of his time. He was also the personal advisor to Emperor Nero, one of the most violent, unpredictable rulers in history. Think about that for a moment. Imagine waking up every morning knowing that the most powerful man in the world could turn on you at any moment, knowing that your words had consequences, that your advice could save lives or end them, that your own life depended on a man who trusted no one. That was Seneca's world, every single morning. Here's the truth. Most people think Stoic philosophy is for people who have easy lives, people who have time to sit and think. But Seneca did not have an easy life. He was exiled twice. He lost friends. He watched people he cared about die at the hands of power. He lived under enormous pressure for decades. And yet he wrote some of the most clear, most calm, most powerful words about how to live that the world has ever seen. Not despite the chaos, because of how he handled the chaos. Starting every morning, Seneca wrote hundreds of letters, most of them to a younger man named Lucilius. These letters are known today as Letters to Lucilius, and they are essentially a manual for living. In them, Seneca talks again and again about how he begins his day, what he thinks about, what he writes, what he refuses to let in. He also wrote a short book called On the Shortness of Life. In it, he made one of the most important observations any human being has ever made. His conclusion was simple. Life is not short. We simply waste so much of it. He woke up. He reflected. He prepared. He wrote. That was his system. And every lesson in this video comes directly from those writings, not someone else's interpretation. This is Seneca in his own words, showing you how to start a day. Most people let the world set their agenda. Seneca set his own. That is the first and most important thing to understand. Every decision in his morning routine came from one central idea. He chose what entered his mind before the world got a chance to choose for him. He was not reacting. He was deciding. And that single difference, choosing versus reacting, is what separates a morning that builds you from a morning that breaks you. He did not manage time. He commanded it. That is who we are learning from today. A man under real pressure with real consequences who built a real system that still works 2,000 years later. That is not philosophy. That is something much more useful. That is proof. Lesson 1. Wake before the world. Most people wake up and immediately enter someone else's world. A notification pulls them into a stranger's argument. A headline fills their head with fear. A message from work reminds them of a problem they have not yet had coffee to face. And within 60 seconds of opening their eyes, their mind belongs to everyone except themselves. Seneca woke up before this was possible. Not because he was extreme, not because he wanted to suffer. He woke up early because he understood something that modern neuroscience now confirms. The brain, in the first hour after waking, is in a uniquely open state. It is not yet defended. It is not yet hardened by the noise of the day. It is soft, ready, and willing to be shaped. Stay with me, because this matters more than you think. Scientists call it the cortical awakening response. In the 30 to 45 minutes after you wake up, your brain produces a natural surge of cortisol. Not the bad kind, the focused kind. The kind that sharpens attention, raises alertness, and prepares the mind for complex thinking. This window is real. It is biological. And it lasts only a short time before the demands of the day begin to close it down. Seneca did not know the word cortisol, but he knew the feeling. He described his early mornings as the only time when his thoughts were fully his own. Before the visitors came, before the letters arrived, before the noise of Rome entered his house. He used that window deliberately. He did not check what was happening in the city. He did not speak to his servants about the day's business. He sat. He breathed. He let his mind settle the way still water settles after you stop touching it. And then, from that place of quiet, he began to think. This is not about waking up at 4 in the morning. That is not the point. The lesson is about what you do with the first moments you have. Whether you give them to the world, or whether you keep them for yourself. The first voice you hear in the morning should be your own. Think about what that means practically. It means that before you open any app, before you read any message, before you turn on any screen, you give yourself at least 10 minutes. 10 minutes where the only input is your own mind, your own breath, your own thoughts about your own life. Seneca did this not as a spiritual practice. He did it as a strategic one. He was preparing for a day that would demand everything from him. He needed his mind sharp, clear, and centered before the demands arrived. Because once they arrived, there was no more time for clarity. There was only response. Not complicated, not beautiful, not about incense or silence or a perfect sunrise. It is about being the first one to occupy your own mind every morning, before the world gets there first. Wake before the world. Not because the world is your enemy, because your mind is your most valuable tool. And like any tool, it performs best when you are the one holding it, not when it is being held by everyone else. That is lesson 1. Simple, hard, worth everything. Lesson 2. Write before you speak. There is a man. Let's call him Daniel. He built his career on speed. He was the first one to reply to emails, the first one in the meeting room, the first one with an opinion. He was successful by every external measure, a good salary, a title, a busy calendar. But Daniel had no morning routine. He woke up, grabbed his phone, and immediately started responding to messages, to requests, to other people's urgency. By 9 in the morning, he had already made 20 small decisions, answered 30 messages, and spent 45 minutes inside other people's problems. He thought he was being productive. He was actually being consumed. 3 years into this pattern, Daniel hit a wall. Not a dramatic collapse, just a quiet, exhausting flatness. He stopped feeling like himself. He stopped knowing what he actually thought about anything because he had spent so long thinking about what everyone else needed from him. A friend gave him a copy of Seneca's letters. He read one line that stopped him completely. Seneca wrote that every morning before he did anything else, he examined himself. Not his schedule, not his tasks, himself. What did he do the day before that he was proud of? What did he do that he was not? What kind of man did he want to be today? Daniel started doing the same thing. 5 minutes. A notebook. 3 questions written by hand every morning before he touched his phone. Within 2 weeks, something shifted. He started the day knowing what he thought. He started meetings with clarity instead of noise. He stopped reacting to everything because he had already decided on paper what actually mattered. Now think about this. Most people use their mornings to consume, to take in, to absorb whatever the world is sending them. Seneca used his morning to produce, to put something out. Even if only a few lines in a private journal, the act of writing forced him to think. Really think. Not react, not scroll. Think. Marcus Aurelius did the same thing. His Meditations, one of the most read books in history, was never meant to be published. It was his private morning journal. Notes to himself, questions, corrections, reminders of who he wanted to be that day. He wrote things like, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That was not a quote for a poster. That was a man talking to himself at dawn, trying to stay on track. If you write it down, you cannot hide from it. You cannot pretend you do not know what you think. The page does not let you escape. And that is exactly why it works. Weak morning scroll and react. Strong morning write and decide. A beautiful journal with perfect handwriting is not the goal. Seneca's private notes were rough, direct, sometimes angry, sometimes confused. That is fine. That is the point. The writing is not the destination. The thinking is. And writing is simply the fastest way to make yourself think clearly. Your morning decides your life. So what do you write? Seneca gives us a clear answer in his letters. He asked himself 3 things. What did I do wrong yesterday? What did I do right? And what will I do differently today? That is it. 3 questions, 5 minutes, every morning without exception. Not because he was hard on himself, because he was honest with himself. And honesty in the morning is the foundation of everything that follows. Write before you speak. Know what you think before you ask the world to tell you. Write before you speak. Know what you think before the world tells you. One of the most powerful habits you will ever build. Lesson 3. Rehearse the hard day. Most people start their morning hoping everything goes well. They hope the meeting is short. They hope the traffic is light. They hope no one gives them bad news before noon. They build their entire morning on hope. Seneca did the opposite. He called it premeditatio malorum. In English, the premeditation of evils. Every morning before the day began, he would sit and deliberately imagine what could go wrong. Not to make himself anxious, not to fill himself with dread, but to drain those things of their power before they arrived. He asked himself, what is the worst thing that could happen today? What if something I am counting on falls apart? What if I lose something I value? What if someone lets me down? And then, having asked those questions honestly, he would answer them, calmly, on paper, in his own mind. He would think through exactly how he would respond, how he would adjust, what he would do. By the time the actual difficulty arrived, if it arrived at all, Seneca had already lived through it once, in his imagination where it cost him nothing. So when it appeared in real life, it had no shock, no sudden panic, no paralysis. Just a man who had already decided how he would act. Hear me on this. Let's be clear about what this is. Pessimism says things will go wrong and there is nothing I can do. Premeditatio malorum says things might go wrong, and here is exactly what I will do when they do. That is not the same thing. That is the difference between a man who is defeated by difficulty and a man who is already prepared for it. Epictetus, another great Stoic teacher, put it this way. He said that some things are in our control and some things are not. Our opinions, our choices, our responses, those are ours. The weather, other people's behavior, the news, the economy, those are not ours. The morning is where you practice knowing the difference. When you sit down and imagine the hard day, you are doing something very specific. You are asking yourself what in today's challenges actually belongs to me. What is mine to carry, and what is not mine at all. Most people waste enormous energy worrying about things they cannot control. Seneca wasted nothing, because every morning he sorted his world into two piles. What is mine, what is not mine. And he only picked up one of them. Weak men fear difficulty. Strong men rehearse it. Here is how to practice this yourself. Take 2 minutes every morning. Just 2. Ask yourself, what is the hardest thing I might face today? Now ask, if that happens, what will I do? Where will I find my footing? What do I know about myself that tells me I can handle this? You do not need long answers. You need honest ones, written down or spoken quietly to yourself. The act of facing the difficulty before it faces you is one of the most powerful things a human mind can do. Fear loses its power when you have already faced it in your mind. Seneca did not wake up and hope for a good day. He woke up and prepared for a real one. That is not a small distinction. One group is controlled by circumstances, the other is not. Seneca chose to be in the second group every morning. That is lesson 3. If this is hitting you, hit subscribe. There is more coming and you do not want to miss it. Lesson 4. Protect the silence. Before Seneca spoke to anyone in the morning, he spent time alone. Completely alone. No visitors, no news, no conversation. Just himself and his thoughts in a quiet room. This was not accidental. This was a decision he made every single day, and he defended it the way a soldier defends a position. Because he understood something that most people in the modern world have completely forgotten. Silence is not empty. Silence is full. It is full of your own thoughts, your own voice, your own sense of what matters. And the moment you let noise in, that fullness disappears. Someone else's voice moves in and takes up all the space. And it is very hard to get your own voice back once that happens. Think about your own morning for a moment. Not the morning you wish you had, the morning you actually have. When does the noise begin? For most people, it begins before they are even fully awake. A podcast in the ear while brushing teeth. A news channel on in the background while making coffee. A conversation starting before the first cup is finished. By 7 in the morning, you have already heard 50 opinions that are not yours. 50 framings of the world that someone else chose. And now your brain is trying to build your day on top of all of that. It is like trying to build a house on someone else's foundation. It never quite feels like yours. Let me make this simple. Seneca believed that the mind, like the body, needs a clean environment to function well. You would not eat your breakfast off a dirty floor. Why would you feed your mind from a dirty source first thing in the morning? Protecting the silence means making a decision the night before. Before tomorrow morning begins, you decide the first 30 minutes are mine. No phone, no news, no other voices. Just the quiet. Just me. It does not have to be long. Seneca was not a man of luxury. He was a man of discipline. He knew that even 15 minutes of genuine silence, of sitting with your own thoughts without interruption, was worth more than 2 hours of scattered, noisy half-thinking. Epictetus taught something similar. Epictetus made this point clearly. The person who is easily disturbed by outside noise has not yet built an inside strong enough to resist it. The goal of the morning silence is not to avoid the world. It is to build yourself up before the world arrives, so that when it does arrive with all its noise and demand and opinion, you are not shaken by it. You are ready for it. A distracted mind starts the day behind. A focused mind starts the day ahead. This is the lesson that is hardest for most people. Not because it requires great effort, because it requires saying no. Saying no to the phone. Saying no to the news. Saying no to that small, anxious voice that says you need to check, you need to know, you need to respond right now. You don't. Not yet. Not until you have had your silence first. What you let in first thing in the morning becomes the voice in your head all day. Read that again slowly. What you let in first becomes the voice in your head all day. If you let in anger, you will feel slightly angry all morning without knowing why. If you let in fear, it will sit quietly behind every decision you make. If you let in noise, you will feel scattered by noon and exhausted by 3. But if you let in silence, you will feel something different. Not calm exactly, more like grounded, like you know where you stand. Like the day belongs to you rather than you belonging to the day. That is what Seneca was protecting every morning. Not his comfort, his clarity. Protect your silence. Guard those first minutes the way Seneca guarded his. Because once the noise gets in, it does not leave easily. And you will spend the rest of the day trying to find the quiet you gave away for free before breakfast. Protect your silence. Guard it every morning. It costs nothing and gives you everything. Lesson 5. Train the body, then the mind. Seneca was not a big man. He was not an athlete. He was thin, often sick, and spent much of his life dealing with lung problems that made breathing difficult. He said this himself in his letters with a kind of dry humor that only a man at peace with his own limitations can manage. And yet every morning he moved his body. Not for hours, not with great intensity. A short walk, some basic physical effort. Something that said to his muscles and his blood, "We are alive today, and we are going to use that." He wrote about this simply. He said that a healthy mind needs a healthy body, not as a luxury, but as a foundation. that the man who neglects his body in the morning is already asking his mind to work without its best support. This was not about fitness. It was not about appearance. It was about signal. When you move your body with intention first thing in the morning, you send a signal to every part of yourself. You say, "Today I am in charge. Today I am not waiting to be acted upon. I am acting." That signal does not stay in your legs or your lungs. It travels upward. It reaches your thinking, your confidence, your willingness to push through difficulty later in the day. Listen carefully. The body and the mind are not separate systems that happen to share the same person. They are one system. What you do to one, you do to the other. Seneca understood this 2,000 years before modern science confirmed it. Today, researchers know that even 10 minutes of physical movement in the morning raises dopamine, increases blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for focus and decision-making, and reduces cortisol in a way that creates sustained calm rather than anxious energy. He did not have these words, but he had the experience of what happened when he moved his body before he started his day, and he never stopped doing it. David Goggins wakes up before 4 in the morning and runs. Every day. Not because it is comfortable, because he has built a life on the principle that the body pushed with intention creates a mind that cannot be easily broken. He has talked about this in many interviews. The physical effort is not the point. The discipline of showing up to it is the point. Seneca would have understood that immediately. If you want to be successful, if you want to think clearly, if you want to face difficulty without flinching, start by moving your body before your mind has had a chance to talk you out of it. This does not have to be extreme. A 10-minute walk, 20 push-ups, some stretching in a quiet room. Something physical, something deliberate, something that your body recognizes as effort. The amount is far less important than the consistency. Because what you are really doing is not exercise. You are making a declaration. You are telling your nervous system, your brain, your habits, and your fears that today will not begin with passivity. It will begin with action. Small action, maybe, but action. A body that moves with intention teaches the mind to do the same. Seneca took his walks in the early morning air often before sunrise. He said that the quiet of those walks gave him some of his clearest thinking. Not because walking is magical, because a moving body frees a thinking mind. The rhythm of movement, the simple sensation of feet on ground, creates a kind of mental space that sitting still in a chair does not always produce. Use that space. Move first. Think second. You will be surprised how much better your second step feels when your first one was physical. That is lesson 5. Short, clear, and harder than it sounds. Lesson 6. Read one line, carry it all day. There is a young woman. Let's call her Nina. She was 23 years old, trying to improve herself and completely overwhelmed. She had a shelf full of self-help books, 12 different podcasts saved on her phone, 4 different morning routine videos bookmarked to watch later. She consumed everything. She finished nothing. Every week she started a new system. Every week she abandoned it. She felt busy and empty at the same time, which is one of the worst feelings a person can have. One morning, frustrated and tired, she opened a thin old book. Seneca's Letters to Lucilius. She read one sentence, just one. She closed the book. She sat with that sentence for 10 minutes. She wrote it in her notebook. She carried it with her all day, turning it over in her mind the way you turn a smooth stone in your hand. That evening, something had shifted. Not dramatically, not in a way she could easily explain, just quietly. The way a room changes when someone opens a window. more air, more light, a little less noise. She did the same thing the next morning. 1 sentence, 10 minutes, 1 day. She did it for 30 days, and at the end of those 30 days, she had not read 30 books. She had not consumed 30 systems. But she understood 10 ideas so deeply that they had become part of how she thought. Not information she had collected, wisdom she had absorbed. Here's what most people miss. There is a massive difference between reading and absorbing. Reading is when your eyes move across words. Absorbing is when those words move into you, into the way you see, into the way you decide, into the way you respond when something hard happens. Most people read for quantity. They want to finish books, cross items off lists, feel the satisfaction of having consumed something. Seneca read for quality. One idea chosen carefully, understood completely applied immediately. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, talks about this principle in a different way. He says that most people focus on the goal. The better question is, what is the system? A goal is what you want. A system is what you do every day. Seneca's morning reading was a system, not a goal to read more books. A daily practice of going deep into one thing. One idea absorbed is worth more than 100 ideas collected. Seneca would read a short passage from a Stoic master, Cato, Epictetus, Marcus. He would write the key idea in his own words. He would ask himself, how does this apply to me today? Not in general. Today. This morning. This specific life I am living right now. That question, how does this apply to me today, is one of the most powerful things you can ask yourself in the morning, because it closes the gap between wisdom and action. It turns philosophy into behavior. It turns reading into living. Weak morning, consume everything, understand nothing. Strong morning, absorb one thing so deeply it changes how you move through the day. Your morning decides your life. Pick one book, not 10. 1. Read no more than 1 page each morning, maybe less, maybe just 1 paragraph. Then stop. Put the book down. Sit with what you read. Write 1 sentence about what it means for you today. Carry that sentence. Simple enough that anyone can start tomorrow. Powerful enough that very few people actually do. Because we live in a world that rewards consumption. More content, more information, more input. Seneca lived in a world that rewarded wisdom. And wisdom does not come from reading more. It comes from understanding deeply. Read 1 line. Carry it all day. Read 1 line. Carry it all day. In some ways, it is the lesson that makes all the other lessons possible. Because without the wisdom to guide the routine is just habit. With the wisdom, it becomes something alive. You have just learned 6 lessons from a man who lived 2,000 years ago. A man who had every reason to lose control of his mornings, and chose every single day not to. Before we close, let me give you one more piece. A small one, but important. Modern science now knows that in the 30 to 45 minutes after you wake up, your brain produces a natural wave of cortisol. This is not stress. This is your body's built-in alarm system for focus and alertness. It is your biological window of maximum clarity. It opens every morning. It closes within the hour. Seneca did not know this, but every single thing he did in the morning used this window perfectly. The quiet reflection, the writing, the physical movement, the slow reading. He was, without knowing the science, working with his own biology rather than against it. That is not coincidence. That is what happens when a person pays close enough attention to their own experience over many years. They discover truths that science eventually catches up to. Now here is Seneca's full morning, all 6 lessons together, clean and simple. 1. Wake before the world. Give the first moments of the day to yourself before you give them to anyone else. 2. Write before you speak. 3 honest questions on paper. What did I do wrong? What did I do right? What will I do better? 3. Rehearse the hard day. Imagine what could go wrong. Decide in advance how you will respond. Drain the fear before it arrives. 4. Protect the silence. Hold the noise back for at least 15 minutes. Let your own voice be the first one you hear. 5. Train the body. Move with intention before your mind has a chance to argue. 10 minutes is enough. Consistency is everything. 6. Read 1 line. Pick 1 idea from 1 good book. Write it in your own words. Carry it through the day. That is the system. Not complicated, not expensive, not reserved for philosophers or emperors or people with perfect lives. Available to anyone who wakes up tomorrow and decides that their morning belongs to them. Your morning decides your life. Seneca died 2,000 years ago. He had no alarm clock, no coffee machine, no motivational podcast, no productivity app. He had his mind, his pen, his discipline, and a deep understanding of what it means to be alive for a limited amount of time and not waste a single morning of it. You have everything he had, and more. The question is not whether you know this now. You do. The question is what you do tomorrow morning, when the alarm goes off, when the phone lights up, when the noise begins its daily attempt to fill your head before you have had a chance to fill it yourself. In that moment, you will make a choice, the same choice Seneca made. Every single morning, for decades. Your morning decides your life. Choose it. Keep listening, keep learning English, and keep growing every single day. Thank you for being here today. I will see you in the next lesson. What is the first thing you do every morning? Tell me in the comments. I read every one.